right, so thank you, Jessica Ramos, for hosting this event. My name is Charlton D'Souza, president of Passengers United, and I actually did a tour of LaGuardia Airport with my colleague James. We spent about 3 hours in the airport, walked around, and we couldn't find the MetroCard machine. It was in a corner. So here's what I'm going to say to you and to the MTA as well. All the buses in and out of LaGuardia Airport should be free, because then it's a hardship. You're just coming off a long flight. Now you have to look for the MetroCard vending machine if you're a tourist. If you don't know how to operate it, oh well. And then the way the buses are outside, when you come outside the airport, it's very disorganized. So I think we need to start getting people in the habit of taking buses. And I think what they should do is raise the parking fees at the airport and put that money into more buses, at least for now, because this air train thing is going to take God knows how many years to build. And in the meantime, the community is affected by it. So that needs to change. But otherwise, guys, I feel your pain, and we will help you at Passengers United in any way that we can. Yep, that's all I wanted to say.
So there's a lot in there. But with the new terminal that was just completed a few months ago, the buses all stop on the first level, which is the high occupancy vehicle and bus level of the terminal. And on that level, there are MetroCard vending machines for people that do need to purchase a MetroCard to board the MTA bus. As Danny mentioned, there are periods during the year, especially during high travel periods, typically vacations or major holidays, where the Q70 is free of charge because we want to encourage people not to use personal vehicles, taxis, Ubers, Lyfts, etc., and reduce vehicular traffic and get people onto buses. So if you don't already follow the LaGuardia Twitter handle, we announce it every time it goes. The Q70 is free. We also promote it through our community outreach efforts. The MTA, I'm sure, does as well. But there are those MTA MetroCard vending machines on the lower level where the buses do stop.
Right, so when we did the tour, we couldn't find it. It took us a few minutes. It's in a corner where it's very hard to visibly see if you're coming from baggage claim. It's very hard to see it. And then the other thing is, when people hear the Q70 is free, many tourists are getting on the M60 thinking it's free, and then they're getting summonses by the fare inspectors. And so the M60 is a very heavy utilized route, and people from the Bronx need that route, as well as people going, on Metro North to Westchester or whatever. They get off at 125th Street. And so many people have gotten summonses. That's not fair. So I think all the buses in and out of LaGuardia should be free. That's going to reduce your traffic. And the elected officials have to work to get the funding for that. But I think that's the best option for the community.
Thank you. Thank you. I mean, as I've said, my posture has always been that the Q70 should be free, and that we should be working towards free transit, particularly on buses. I do think that would cost a lot of money, and that is something that we would have to tabulate and figure out how we can start increasing funding in our budget. I do know that especially in the outer neighborhoods of Queens, the eastern neighborhoods of Queens, elected officials there have been doing a good job of getting money for SBS in order to facilitate their move west. So that's something that we've been talking about even for Northern Boulevard. I dream of SBS on Northern Boulevard and truly utilizing that corridor in a much more efficient way.
Because when people get off the bus, when people get off that bus, they still have to pay to get on the subway. And the problem is, once you get on the subway, if you need to transfer to a third bus, then you're paying an extra fare. So I think by making it free, it'll just make it more convenient for people. That's all I wanted to say. Thank you.
Thank you. So Rebecca, and then down here. Yes.
Hi, thank you so much for organizing the event, Senator Ramos, and really thank you to all the agencies for fielding all the questions. I very appreciate it. I have two quick questions. The first, I was surprised that impact to open space wasn't included in the criteria list for the review, and I was wondering why. That's my first one. And then the second one is really directed at MTA and maybe DOT also. And I just heard concerns come up at the workshop, especially around the potential will it impact traffic? By focusing on dedicated bus lanes? And I'd love to hear more about the environmental impacts, talk more about e-buses, any of those, if we could just share information about that would be great. So I'll start with Hirsch with criteria, but then MTA for that bus question.
So to your first question, Rebecca, impact to open space. So the direction that we were asked to advance was identifying the ways to improve mass transit access to LaGuardia Airport and reducing vehicular traffic to the airport. So based on those two goals, those are the factors that we identified to advance the goals that of this evaluation.
I'm actually going to pass it to Nicole.
So obviously back to the first question, you know, when we get plans or potential options, we all work together, the state, the Port Authority, MTA, and the engineers all review that. What I can say about our SDS, and in particular during the pandemic, together with MTA, DOT launched a number of busways. So in Queens, we have Main Street, we have Jamaica, and we have Midland. So, and also Archer Avenue. And what we found is that these busways, they improve the bus speed, so faster rides, and no impacts, negative impacts related to traffic. So even with Woodhaven SDS, we didn't see all of these cars diverting to residential streets, creating safety challenges, etc. The same thing with Fresh Pond Metro, which isn't select bus service, but we've done some important queue jumps which help make it run faster. That's what we're doing right now on Northern Boulevard, and hopefully one day we can materialize your vision for select bus service on Northern Boulevard. But what we have found is that riders benefit. We don't see the negative impacts onto the community, and traffic doesn't. Because if buses are traveling faster, oh, are you okay? Yeah, okay. If buses are moving faster, so is the rest of traffic, and we have fewer cars on the road.
Thanks. And then also the E question, sorry, the E-bus thing. I think it's for MTA.
E-bus question?
Yeah, just I've heard some concerns about impacts to air quality from buses and impacts on the environment from buses. So I'd just love to, if you could say more about it.
I mean, right now we are looking to build our first entirely zero-emission bus depot out in Jamaica, Queens, that will actually be able to house over 200 electric buses. It is the future of where we believe transit needs to be going. So if you can talk a little bit, you know, I'm happy to talk with you after this about what specifically you're hearing. I'd be happy to get you some more information. But as an agency, we're making a deep investment in electric buses in the hopes to, you know, lessen our carbon emissions.
Fabulous. Thank you so much. I also, sorry, I didn't say this before, but just to build off Laura and Frank's point, I just want to add that the airport is also entirely in a flood zone. The plan, and also on top of that, we said there are a couple of things that said earlier, like AirTrain is no longer part of the alternatives. It is one of the alternatives. It's still on the docket. So just to be really cognizant of that, and whenever we're thinking about the airport, leading up to the airport, remembering that we're also talking about a floodplain. And we can say that we're planning resilient designs for those floodplains, but we saw what happened during Ida. We saw the impact of flooding inland. We saw the impact on places that we didn't think could flood. And water's going to go where it wants to go. So just being really cognizant of those impacts as well. Thanks.
All right, good point. Hey, I'm just really curious, and I appreciate the fact that you brought everyone together for this symposium. I've always wanted to understand, because it seems that the solutions that we're all pragmatically looking at really are not solving much of any problem, because I'm really curious to know if you did a demographic study of the people who really want to be able to get to LaGuardia Airport by mass transit, who are they? Because anybody that's in the neighborhood is just going to either take a cab or take the local bus. Anyone that lives or walk. Anyone that lives further east, if you can afford to live in Great Neck, I guarantee you are not taking the schlep into Flushing to then take any kind of means of transport to get to the airport. Everyone who lives in Manhattan, if you're doing business, because you got to remember, LaGuardia is an O&D airport. So origination, destination, this is not people who are transiting to fly somewhere else. So if you're on the south side of Queens, you're going to take the car up Van Wyck. If you're in Manhattan and you can afford to live in Manhattan, you're taking a black car. If you live in Westchester, you're taking a car down. I have friends that live in Connecticut. It's 50 minutes from Westport on a good day into the airport. So I keep listening to all of this, and I keep hearing all of this money that you want to spend on all of these grandiose solutions. But we have some very simple ideas right here. Just make the efficiency of the M60 and the Q70 a little better, and then tell me what you're going to do in terms of how many people really are going to use it. Because if you do the study that they did for JFK, and you look at the number of people who are using it, who are not just the transit workers who figure it's cheaper to take the train to the A train and then take the train to the plane into the airport, rather than parking, the workers,